All right, the first thing today, though, before we get into trust, is the introductory slideshow. Okay, share screen. Let's see how it goes today, hopefully smoothly. This should be it. Okay. I will start the slideshow. I guess you see what I see, if this is actually working now. Ah, there. Hopefully you see that too. Welcome to Raising Happy Kids Zoom Show, episode 51, Trust and the One Rule to Raising Happy Kids. During this 1-hour Zoom show, I focus on sharing tips and lessons on the one rule to raising happy kids. Each episode has at least one example of the one rule in action, demonstrating how it helps you raise a happy child. Then, when we have guests, we have Q&A and discussion. When I talk about raising happy kids or creating harmony with kids, I bring up the one rule. The one rule equals agreement. Agreement equals harmony. Using the one rule means you find agreement. That's the rule. You find a solution that everyone likes. You've found agreement. You've found harmony. Knowing and following the one rule is all you really need to create harmony between you and your kids. In any situation where there are differences that might lead to conflict between you and your kids, use the one rule. I learned this strategy from 3-year-old children. I was teaching them a complex conflict resolution strategy, actually intended for adults, and they taught me this. So don't think you're in for a rough time. It's simple. It's easy. It's powerful and effective. It works if you use it. The one rule: start strong. You have decided that you really want harmony with your child. That sounds so good, right? Everyone feeling good, getting along. You've decided that you do not want to make your child do what they do not want to do. And you do not want to do what you do not want to do. And you are going to make this work. You have decided that you want to use the one rule to make this happen. This is going to become your new habit. You remember that when you use the one rule, you are sharing the following messages with your kids. I want us all to be happy. We are each important. Together we can solve our problems. I believe in you. I love you. To create this new habit, you are going to start with yourself and what you want. You decide that you are going to let how you feel about a situation determine whether you agree with it or not. If it feels good, then you can agree with it. If not, you cannot. Ask yourself, Is the situation with me okay with me just as it is? If yes, good. If no, what would have to change, be different, so that I could feel good about it? Maybe several versions of this situation would feel fine with you, maybe only one. This exercise, this practice, helps you make a habit of following the one rule. No matter what age your kids are, this exercise helps ensure a strong start and makes following the one rule so much easier. Here is something that might make following the one rule even easier. Recently, I asked myself a question. What do I want people to feel when they are connecting with my work? I definitely want them to feel good about themselves. Then the following answer appeared, to my surprise and delight. I want people to realize that they are already using the one rule. That understanding surprised me, and as more and more of it was revealed to me, it delighted me. Of course, people are already using the one rule. I am not teaching them anything they don't know. I'm not teaching them anything strange to them. I am just helping them expand their use of something they use daily without thinking about it. They use it. You use it. Every time you come to a decision inside of yourself, you are using the one rule. Most likely you had to consider several options or possibilities to reach that decision, even if it just took you a few seconds for you to agree with yourself. That is what I want. You also use the one rule whenever you agree with someone else. Together you come to a decision, an agreement. Yes, tomorrow I'll go to the auto parts store after I get my nails done. Even with your kids, you're using the one rule. You're coming to agreements. Think about it. Of course you are. You are just not thinking of it as a rule, as something required. So at times you are not coming to agreement. I'm here to help you think of coming to agreement as required, as a rule, as the one rule. You just expand the situations where you come to agreement until coming to agreement is just what you do and your kids do. It is the rule you and your kids follow. When you use the one rule, you are creating harmony. Your kids are creating harmony. You are becoming used to creating harmony, familiar with how good it feels to everyone involved. One point to be clear on is that even if a situation seems complicated and it seems that it is impossible to find a solution that everyone involved can feel good about, it is still possible. The important thing to remember is that there is a way for things to work so that everyone involved gets to feel good. Keep that in mind. This has been my experience whenever I have made this effort. When you actually start working with your kids using the one rule, helping them follow their interests is one of the easiest ways for you to start. You can understand that, right? It is also one of the most beneficial things you can do for your kids. Why is it good for your kids to do what interests them? One primary reason is that their interest is a key to helping them become the best versions of themselves that they can become. When we do what interests us, we are very engaged and focused. Think about doing something that interests you. When we are engaged and focused, what we do and produce tends to be of much better quality than if we were not interested. Interest helps result in excellence. An even more important result of being engaged and focused is that our whole being is involved in what interests us. That is why we are engaged and focused. We are experiencing harmony, inner harmony. That is a good reason to allow and encourage our kids to do what they are interested in doing. I have observed children doing what really interests them, and they become peaceful, harmonious people, even if they were not before. Now, it does not mean that everything that interests our kids is going to always interest them. They may be interested for 10 minutes, or 10 hours, or 10 days, or 10 years, or even a lifetime. The point is following their interests, not the specific thing or experience that interests them. So if they ask for your help, please help your kids follow their interests. If for any reason you really do not want to do what they're asking you to do, that is a perfect time to use the one rule. Another reason for helping your kids follow their interests is one that is taking care of you too. When they are eager to do something instead of resisting doing it, you do not have to encourage them to do it or insist that they do it, let alone force them to do it. Think of how much of your time and energy could be available for you to use as you wish. Helping them follow their interest is actually the one rule in action, taking care of you and your kids. I'm glad you're here. Okay. Let's stop this. All right. Today, the idea of focusing on trust came up because last week I was having an informal discussion with a parent about some issues in their family with her son. And one thing that she said, and I think it might be a common idea for parents, is that that the parents are the guides for the children. That didn't strike me during our conversation, but when the idea of trust came up a few days later, that yes, that's what I'm going to focus on for the show, I went back and I was looking through some of the earlier shows. I was going to see if I had done any shows on trust, and I found 2. And in the second one, an idea was posed, and it makes a lot of sense to me. The idea was that the parents are not necessarily the guides. I think the developmental blueprint is the guide. The parents are examples and helpers to help the child follow their developmental blueprint, do what it is guiding them, in fact, almost forcing them, but not forcing them, but strongly guiding them to do. And the parents are to be examples of how to live. That's where the children learn their language and how things are done in wherever it is that they're born, because it varies from place to place. Anyway, so I just wanted to make sure that I got to share that point with you. It'll come up in the slideshow. So I'm going to share those 2 slideshows with you, and then we'll see what happens after that. Okay, let's see. No, I don't want to do that. Okay, let me pull up the slideshow I want to do next. Whoops. And this is the first one. Okay. Now let's get back to oh, okay. Screen sharing. To close this. Thank you. All right. Hopefully this is the one. I can't tell with this. We'll see. Ah, yes, it is. Okay, let's make it. I want to share today. What I want to share today is because of one thing that came up during Barda Allen's presentation. She did a show on unschooling because that's what she did with her kids. And so anyway, she made that presentation. That is the concept of trusting kids. Put this to use and feel an enjoyable sense of ease in your life. It turns out that this is an outcome of using the one rule. Here's a short review of the one rule and some supportive elements. Kids have a very important job to do, as important as any job on earth. It's their job to create an adult, the adult they become. One of our jobs is to help them do this and hopefully do an excellent job of it. The one rule helps this happen. It is distilled from over 47 years of focused attention, observation, experimenting, inspiration, and caring. That's why experiencing, understanding, and using the one rule is so important. The one rule helps kids follow their developmental blueprint. Kids are equipped with a developmental blueprint which dictates how to accomplish things like walking, talking, and all that we must conquer as we grow up. This developmental blueprint, with its inner motivation, ensures that a child masters certain abilities. A child must do what their blueprint dictates. Here is the one rule. To raise happy kids and to be happy yourself, make sure that all involved agree with each decision. I know it sounds too simple. It is simple. But this is how I raised my kids. Once I decided never to force them to do what they did not want to do. This was how I treated the kids I worked with. For short, the one rule equals agreement. And here are beliefs that support the one rule. We are each important. We each deserve to feel good. There is a way to find agreement. You don't have to accept these beliefs to be able to use the one rule. But as you use the one rule, you discover that you are using them. Just as you discover that you trust your kids, even if you did not start out trusting them and their decisions. Using the one rule automatically brings about trusting and trustworthiness. Benefits of trust. Trusted children develop into trustworthy children. It is so exciting to trust children and have them prove that your trust in them was warranted. Perhaps not the first try, or even the third, but then how often among humans is the first try the only one needed to achieve competency? As you watch for it and expect to see evidence of trustworthy behavior, you see it more and more. Trustworthy kids are a joy. You know they've learned a lot about what's good for them and what's not. Also, since you trust them, they can't help but trust your good judgment and come to you easily when they need help. Steps toward trusting. What if you're afraid to trust your child's judgment? You may have good reasons for this. However, you can move from where you are to where you want to be, trusting them because they've proven themselves trustworthy. You could start with small, safe situations. Discuss this process with them. Tell them you want to be able to trust their decisions. Make sure they agree that this is a good idea. Use the one rule. Now you can both learn what you need to learn. They can learn to be trustworthy and you can learn to trust them. It's good for you both to practice. Keep this going. It might be more effective, though it might be more difficult for you to start with something that means a lot to your child. Discuss it thoroughly. Make sure you both understand how you want it to go. They are likely to make their greatest efforts to be successful if it is something they really want to happen. Eventually, you'll be able to trust them and they'll prove themselves worthy of that trust. Then, even if things don't go as you both intended, you'll both know that they've done their best to be trustworthy, and there is no reason to stop trusting them. Here are a couple of stories about situations that taught me some lessons about trusting kids. The first lesson taught me that trusted kids live their truth. I call this the roof jumper. At Children's House, our Montessori preschool, we had a low shed over the tricycles to protect them from the weather. One day, one of the 4 or 5-year-old boys figured out how to climb on the roof and was getting ready to jump off. I rushed over to him to stop him. He told me that he did this at home all the time. I decided to trust him and stood by to be available. He did fine. Other boys came over to join in. One tried and decided against it. More than one boy decided not to climb up and jump. A few did it. No one got hurt. They all got to be trusted with something very challenging, and they all got to make the right decision for themselves. In the poison oak lesson, I learned that sometimes trusting is the only choice that makes any kind of sense. One of my assistants at Children's House walked with a small group of kids to take a couple of them to the school bus out on the main road. When I got back, she told me that while she was getting the kids on the bus, one of the little girls had convinced the other kids to pick poison oak leaves and rub themselves with the leaves. The girl told the others that nothing would happen to them. I panicked. I wished that we had a bathtub so they could all be washed, but we didn't. I began washing one child's hands and arms and realized that this was an impossible task. We had a tiny child-sized sink and there were about 6 kids. I decided that if they believed that nothing was going to happen, I would believe that too. I would trust their decision. That's what I did, and nothing came of it. No cases of poison oak. This is a picture of, well, it's not a picture of Children's House. It's a picture of what's called the Octagon, where this started, and a little over on the left, not in this picture, is where Children's House is now, and where it's not where it started, but it's where it started here on this land that was given for this purpose. Okay, that's the end of that slideshow. Okay, I'm gonna close this and I'll close this one. So it won't get too confusing when I'm doing the screen share. Okay, good. Oh, I can go right into this one. Oh, how cool. All right. So this is the second show that I found. Apparently it came right after the one I just shared with you, on trust. An aspect of trust that we did not address at all last week is what trust means to us. So here are some of my thoughts on trusting others. Trusting someone means that you believe that you can find agreement with them. You believe in their decisions and actions. Trust also means believing that someone is speaking the truth of their experience and understanding. It has been said that if there are 15 witnesses to an incident, there will be 15 different stories about what happened. It can help to remember this when you consider judging whether someone is speaking the truth. Last week's show ended with the awareness that there was an aspect of trust I had not covered in last week's talk, and that is the child believing in and trusting their parents. I just covered the child becoming trustworthy so that their parents can believe in them. However, since the adult is the example, the model for their kids, trust between kids and adults starts there. Because of our last week's theme, trust, and ending the show with people wanting more, trust has been a theme that has floated in and out of my mind during this past week. The two primary aspects have been kids trusting the adults in their lives, and then the adults trusting themselves. First, kids trusting adults. As I think about it, it must be built into children to trust their parents, as love between parent and child seems to be built in for survival. Doesn't that make sense? When we are babies, we are entirely dependent on the adults in our lives to help us survive and hopefully thrive. Think of how much we can't do for ourselves. In any case, it seems that when we are babies and small children, we have no option but to trust. One awareness that has just come to me is that however much we trust our parents, trusting our parents does not take priority over trusting our developmental blueprint. What we need to do to ensure our developmental progress toward adulthood takes priority over what our parents might want us to do or not do. This is shown clearly in babies who can't yet talk or walk, but still do things that their parents do not want them to do. In fact, they might even insist on doing certain things. It seems that the most powerful trust we have as a child is in following our developmental blueprint. In terms of trusting the adults in our lives, it seems that we do trust them as long as they do not go against what we are inspired to do by our developmental blueprint. For example, as a baby, we are inspired to touch things and put them in our mouths. That is a valuable way for us to learn about things. Often our parents do not want us to put things in our mouths and try to stop us. Some even hit us, hoping that hurting us will make us stop, but it doesn't. So it seems that adults becoming trustworthy to kids becomes an issue when parents try to force kids to go against what the kids are inspired to do. Perhaps the best we can do is to help them do what they are inspired to do. Or maybe we can even encourage them and give them opportunities to go in the direction their developmental blueprint is guiding them. Maybe we are not here as their guides. This is what I brought up earlier. Just as examples and helpers, and to love them and be loved by them. In this process of trusting, it seems that the one rule takes care of the whole issue. The one rule agreement not only helps people develop trust in themselves and trust in others who practice the one rule. You can use it even if you don't already believe in yourself or your kids. Practice the one rule and get the wonderful results that come from using the one rule. Following your interests, harmony, getting what you want without having to fight for it, even trusting, believing in yourself. The other aspect of trusting that has come to me this week is adults trusting themselves, their thoughts, their decisions, and their actions. I'm calling it believing in yourself, and it seems very important. In fact, as a model of how to live, it seems critically important, not to mention it is essential for personal thriving. Now a third aspect of trust has appeared, which is a primary goal of trusting. Kids growing up trusting themselves so they can thrive. The two stories I told you last week, The Roof Jumper and Poison Oak, were used as examples of an adult, me, trusting kids. But they are also examples of kids trusting themselves. In The Roof Jumper, those kids who thought they could do the jump did. And those who did not think they could, didn't. Both groups were exercising belief in themselves toward a successful end. In Poison Oak, all of the kids believed in their decision to try what their friends suggested. They also had successful outcomes. The following story demonstrates that kids can be trusted with control over many aspects of life that adults often assume they cannot handle. As Bob Schwartz points out in his book, Diets Don't Work, they can even be trusted to choose the food they eat. This is from the book. I once read of an experiment in which children suffering from malnutrition were put into a room filled with food. There were all kinds of delicious things to eat, including sweets and candy, and in the corner there was a kettle of gruel. The gruel wasn't as appetizing as the rest of the food, but it was loaded with all the nutrients the children's bodies lacked. The children were told they could have anything they wanted, and almost without exception, they headed for the gruel. They couldn't get enough of it. Okay, this is about something that was happening at that time with Zoom. All right. Okay. Let's, oh. Okay, that is the end of what I had planned here. So I'm wondering what to do next. Usually I have a full show planned just in case there are no guests. And since there are no guests today, which I kind of knew would happen, I'm wondering what to do next. I'm thinking of it seems that there were several points that came up on trust. Well, one thing that comes to mind is that when I had finished my first book, and it was actually the book that started me down this long, many years road of sharing what I learned about helping kids have good lives. In those days, it was known, well, what came to me when somebody was asking me about, it came up in a parent meeting. And the thing that I felt that I did differently than the other people around me was treating children with respect. This is interesting because, okay, what I was going to tell you was that one of my friends, when I was explaining what was in the book, when I got to the part about trusting, she was like, oh, that's going to be way too hard for parents, that they're just not going to be able to do that. And so that was something that was kind of a theme in my mind for a long time, long time. And that came up actually recently too. Sarah, the head of the Women's Federation here, Women's Federation for World Peace, brought that up, that she could think, especially of Korean mothers who would find trusting their kids just not an option. And my response to that was, because usually I believe that it's easier to have, okay, people, if they want to change, then there's an opening for change. If they don't want to change, then there's not. So my inclination at that would be, well, I'm not going to try to change them. However, since my commitment is to children and to kids of all ages, whether their parents are ready for change or not doesn't really fit in. And I mean, the more they are open to creating harmony with their kids, that's totally great. And the one rule is something that could definitely help there. If they don't want to, then I started thinking of presenting to children, and that is moving along and in process too. But when I just now, when I was thinking of my friend who said this would be really difficult, trusting would be very difficult for parents. It reminded me of how the origins of this whole thing. And so maybe I'll share some of that with you here now. Because all of this, all the books I've written, my websites and blog posts and workshops I've done, all of this, and the connections I'm making now to expand this awareness and the use of the one rule. It began with Montessori training and getting trained by someone who had actually lived in Maria Montessori's household as a companion for her son. And he was my trainer in India. And then starting a Montessori school in Northern California, which is still going on. And then at watching how adults were relating to children, even seeing in myself ways of relating to children that weren't in line, as far as I was concerned, with what I had studied and learned about. And so it really disturbed me. It disturbed me in myself, and it disturbed me in others. And yet, as I would think about it, it was the approach was the way I was raised, and it seemed to be in line with was what would be expected of a parent or an adult in charge of children, as I was at Children's House. But it really bothered me. It really, really bothered me. And I kind of pulled back from being in situations with it as much as possible. I mean, my job was involved every day being with parents and children, mostly with the children, of course, but but it really bothered me. And then one day when my oldest daughter was she was over a year, a friend and I were in another town, and I don't remember why, but we were, and we stopped at a church rummage sale to look at what they had. And I was looking at some baby clothes for my daughter. And I'm not sure why this happened, but I was motivated to turn over one of the price tags. And on the back of it was what seemed to me to be, and what I held in my mind that this is what it was. But I'm now not sure if that's what it was, but it doesn't really matter because it did its thing. It had its effect. And that was believing that it was the Emancipation Proclamation. And all of a sudden it was like lightning bolt in my head of like, that is why what's going on between the parents and the kids, or even at times me and the kids, that's why it bothers me. It's a form of slavery. And that was like an awakening awareness. And then I became aware of it everywhere, that was the attitude, that was the thinking, those were the actions. And then, and for a while, I was really upset about this. But then it came to me that I wanted to find a solution for this. And I wanted to be able to share it with people in a way that they could hear it. And attacking or any kind of judgment or any of that is not going to help. It's just going to make people put up walls and block that information from coming to them, that knowing, that awareness. So I knew that was not going to work. But I didn't know the solution, and I didn't know how to share it, but it definitely switched things in me. And I did have inner changes, a couple of them in terms of a couple of times, one with my own children, one with children at Children's House. And the whole concept of respect, to make respect your bottom line so that you're never less than respectful, that's kind of an alert to you, that maybe what you're thinking of doing or wanting to do or whatever, or say, is not respectful, therefore don't go there. Okay, so for many years, that has been the approach to creating harmony with kids, thinking in those terms, and acting. That was my guideline. Once a parent asked me if I would write this down, if I would share this. This was before I wrote the book, my first book. Write this down and share this. And at the time, I mean, I thought that might be a good idea, but I didn't do it then. But I did keep it in mind. It was when I was considering an invitation to go to India and help a community service organization create educational centers on their, I think they had over 100 properties. And they wanted me to do that. And so as I was considering that possibility, I decided that I definitely had to write down what I felt I had learned about creating harmony with kids that I did not see being practiced around me. So, for the benefit of the children that were at Children's House and Skyfish and their parents, I started the writing, and it turned into a book, my first book, and a mission. That's what I was getting to, and a mission, which I'm continuing now, so that all children grow up in harmonious situations, and even their educational situations are harmonious situations, though that's, I would like to see that. I would like to, anyway, it could be, I don't know how far in the future. It's definitely not there today, all of it, but some of it. And I think it's going to expand quickly with those who are interested now. You'll be learning more about that. I will be launching the new website soon. I'm working on the trainings that I'm going to make available there. And then I will be sharing it with everyone. I have shared it with some people already, because there is a lot there already. So the one thing I want to say is that all that history led up to what's now called the One Rule, and it pretty much encapsulates all of those years. And there's at least 108 tools, skills, and strategies that either I developed or I discovered, anyway I used, and they're all connected into the One Rule. The One Rule kind of takes care of all of that. All you have to do is follow the rule. If you follow the rule, all of those things will come as benefits into your life. So many benefits for you and your children. So, hope you do. Okay, that's it for today. I wish you well. Hope you have a great week, and see you next week. Bye.